The morning sun cast long shadows across the concrete landing pad as the crystalline ships descended from the sky. Admiral Jiwan Park stood with her arms crossed, watching through the reinforced windows of the observation deck. The alien vessels were beautiful in a way that hurt to look at directly. They seemed to be made of living glass that shifted colors as they moved through Earth's atmosphere. "They're bigger than our satellites," muttered Dr. Minho Kim, pressing his face against the window. His breath fogged the glass as he spoke. "How did they even fit through our orbital defense grid?" "They didn't trigger it," Jawan replied. "That's what worries me." The ships landed without making a sound. No engines roared, no thrusters fired. They simply glided down like falling leaves and settled onto the specially prepared landing zone outside New Geneva. Within minutes, a ramp extended from the largest ship, and the first aliens stepped onto Earth. G1 had seen the preliminary videos from the space stations, but seeing them in person was different. The aliens were tall, nearly 8 feet, with skin that looked like frosted glass. Multiple eyes dotted their elongated heads, each one blinking independently. When they moved, they seemed to float rather than walk. "Remember the protocols?" Jawan said to her team. "No sudden movements. Keep your hands visible. And for the love of all that's holy, don't touch anything without permission." The meeting hall had been prepared according to the alien specifications. The temperature was kept cool, the lights were dimmed, and special translation equipment hummed quietly in the corners. As the alien delegation entered, their leader stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Veltar of the Hegemony Council," the creature sighed. Its voice came through the translators as a series of musical tones that somehow formed words. "We greet the dominant species of this world." Jawan stepped forward. "I'm Admiral Jiwan Park, representing the United Earth Defense Force, Dr. Minho. Kim here speaks for our scientific community. Welcome to Earth." The ambassador's multiple eyes focused on them. "Your species has achieved basic space travel. This brings you to our attention. We come with an offer that will ensure your survival." "Survival?" Minho asked. "Are we in danger?" "All primitive species are in danger," Valtar replied. "The galaxy is vast and hostile. There are forces beyond your understanding that consume entire worlds, pirates who steal resources, plagues that wipe out civilizations, cosmic storms that can destroy star systems." The ambassador gestured, and a holographic display filled the center of the room. Images of destroyed planets flashed by, showing burned cities and empty space where worlds once existed. "We are the Galactic Protection Consortium," Veltar continued. "We protect over 10,000 worlds across 400 star systems. For a reasonable tribute, we can extend this protection to Earth." G1 exchanged glances with Minho. The offer sounded generous, but something felt off. "What kind of tribute?" "Nothing excessive. 15% of your world's resources. Relocation of your military vessels to non-threatening positions. Acceptance of our monitoring stations in your system. In return, you receive protection from all galactic threats." "And if we refuse?" G1 asked. The ambassador's eyes blinked in sequence. "That would be ... Wise. Unprotected worlds rarely survive their first century of space travel." High above Earth, Captain Hayasu Lee watched the proceedings through her ship's cameras. Her vessel, the New Soul, was one of Earth's newest exploration ships. She had been conducting routine patrols when the alien fleet arrived. "Something's not right about this," she said to her second-in-command, Lieutenant Bora Kim. "What do you mean, Captain?" Hayasu pointed at her tactical display. "Look at their ships. They're advanced, sure, but look at the configuration. Those aren't attack formations. Those are defensive positions." Bora studied the screen. The alien ships had arranged themselves in a protective circle, with their weapons facing outward rather than toward Earth. "They're afraid of something," Hayasu realized. "But what?" Back in the meeting hall, the presentation continued. The aliens showed more images of the dangers that awaited unprotected worlds. Space monsters with teeth the size of buildings. Energy beings that fed on entire suns. Robot armies that turned planets into metal. These threats are real, Veltar insisted. We have defended against them for thousands of years. Our technology is far superior to yours. Our experience in galactic affairs is vast. We offer you the benefit of both. Minho raised his hand. Can we see some of your protected worlds? Maybe speak with their representatives? The ambassador hesitated. That is not possible. Contact between protected species is restricted for security reasons. It prevents the spread of contamination and reduces the risk of conspiracy among our enemies. Enemies? G1 asked. I thought you were offering protection. Who exactly are these enemies? There are many, Veltar replied vaguely. Ancient evils, machines that think, beings from spaces between spaces. The galaxy is not a safe place for the unprepared. The meeting lasted for hours. The aliens answered some questions but avoided others. They provided technical data about their ships and weapons, but refused to share detailed information about the threats they claimed to protect against. They spoke of their vast civilization, but couldn't provide specific details about any of their member worlds. As the day wore on, Jiwan began to notice small details that troubled her. The aliens' clothing looked worn and patched. Their equipment, while advanced, showed signs of hasty repairs. When they thought no one was looking, they glanced nervously at the sky. We will need time to consider your offer, Jiwan said finally. Of course, Veltar replied, but do not take too long. The galaxy does not wait for slow decisions. We have seen too many worlds fall because they hesitated. After the aliens returned to their ships, Jiwan called an emergency meeting with Earth's leadership. The video conference included presidents, prime ministers, and military commanders from around the globe. What's your assessment, Admiral? Asked President Martinez of the Americas Union. They're hiding something, Jiwan said without hesitation. Their story has holes. They claim to protect thousands of worlds, but they can't provide proof. They talk about galactic threats, but our deep space monitoring hasn't detected anything unusual. Maybe their technology is beyond our ability to detect, suggested Chancellor Weber of the European Federation. Maybe, Gawan admitted. But I've been watching their body language, if you can call it that. They're nervous, scared even. These don't act like representatives of a powerful galactic government. They act like refugees. Prime Minister Tanaka of the Pacific Alliance leaned forward. Refugees? From what? That's what we need to find out, Jiwan replied. I recommend we accept their offer to stay and negotiate, but we need to investigate their claims quietly. The meeting broke up with orders to begin discreet intelligence gathering. As the world leaders signed off, Minho approached Jiwan. Do you really think they're lying? He asked. Ji1 looked out the window at the alien ships. I think they're telling us part of the truth. There probably are threats out there, but I don't think they're the powerful protectors they claim to be, and that makes me very curious about what they're really running from. Outside, the crystalline ships sat silent on the landing pad, their surfaces reflecting the setting sun. To most observers, they looked like vessels of an advanced civilization offering a generous deal. But to those who looked more carefully, they looked like something else entirely. They looked like the ships of people who had been running for a very long time. The second day of negotiations took place in the Grand Assembly Hall of the United Nations building. Representatives from every major nation sat around the circular table, while the alien delegation stood at the center. Ambassador Veltar had brought additional equipment, massive holographic projectors that filled the room with three-dimensional images. We will show you the true dangers of the galaxy, Veltar announced. The lights dimmed, and suddenly the assembly hall disappeared. The humans found themselves floating in space, surrounded by stars and nebulae. A collective gasp rose from the audience as a massive creature materialized before them. It looked like a cross between a shark and a dragon, but it was the size of a small moon. Its teeth gleamed like polished metal in the starlight. The Devourers, Veltar explained. They travel between star systems, consuming everything in their path. Planets, ships, entire civilizations, nothing can satisfy their hunger. The image shifted to show a battle. Dozens of ships fought against the creature, their weapons lighting up the darkness. But the monster's hide seemed to absorb the energy, growing larger with each attack. Dr. Sunwoo Choi, Earth's chief military strategist, leaned forward in his chair. He had spent 30 years studying warfare, and something about the battle didn't look right. The defending ships were using outdated tactics, almost primitive compared to current human military doctrine. The hologram changed again. This time it showed a planet being consumed by what looked like a silver liquid. The metal spread across continents, turning forests into mechanical landscapes and cities into geometric patterns. The converters, Veltar continued. They remake entire worlds in their image. No organic life survives their touch. We have lost 17 protected worlds to them in the past century. 17 worlds? Asked Naeon Yoon, Earth's trade negotiator. I thought you said you had successfully protected thousands of worlds for thousands of years. There was a pause before Veltar responded. The threats have grown stronger in recent times. This is why we seek new allies. United, we are stronger. The presentation continued for hours. They saw energy beings that fed on stars, causing them to go supernova. Robot armies that could reproduce themselves using any metal they found. Cosmic storms that could tear apart the fabric of space itself. Each threat looked terrifying, but Sunwoo noticed that all the battles shown were defeats. Every planet was lost. Every defense failed. For a supposedly successful protection service, the consortium seemed to lose a lot of fights. After the presentation, the aliens outlined their specific requirements. They wanted Earth to provide raw materials, iron, gold, rare earth elements. They wanted human military ships moved to the outer solar system, away from Earth and Mars. They wanted permission to build monitoring stations on the Moon and on several asteroids. The tribute is reasonable, Veltar assured them. 15% of annual production. Many worlds pay much more for far less protection. Naeon ran quick calculations in her head. 15% of Earth's total resource production would cripple the human space program. They were just starting to build colonies on Mars and the moons of Jupiter. They had plans for mining operations in the asteroid belt. Giving up that much material would set human expansion back by decades. What about our own defense forces? Asked General Roberts from the North American Command. Do we maintain them? There will be no need, Veltar replied. Our protection is complete. Your weapons are primitive compared to galactic-level threats. It is better to focus your resources on production rather than futile military preparations. After the aliens left? For the day, the human leadership held private meetings. In Seoul, military engineers examined the technical specifications the aliens had provided. In Lagos, economists calculated the long-term impact of the tribute demands. In Sao Paulo, scientists analyzed the threat data. It was in the engineering labs where the first real clues emerged. Kyung-soo, one of Earth's top spacecraft designers, had been given access to detailed scans of the alien ships. What he found surprised him. Look at this, he said to his team, pointing at the holographic display of an alien vessel. See these modifications on the hull? Those aren't original design features, they've been added later. His assistant Minji zoomed in on the section he indicated. It looks like armor plating, but it's not integrated into the ship's structure. It's been bolted on, exactly, and look here. Kyung-soo highlighted another area, these weapon mounts. They're not part of the original design either. Someone took what was probably a civilian ship and turned it into a warship. Quickly. They found similar modifications throughout the alien fleet. Hull patches that didn't match the original materials. Weapon systems that looked hastily installed. Power conduits that had been rerouted around battle damage. These ships have been in combat, Kyung-soo concluded. Recent combat, and they've been running repairs on the fly. Meanwhile, in the financial districts of major cities, economists were finding their own problems with the alien story. Naeon had called a conference with trade specialists from around the world. The numbers don't add up, she explained to the group. They claim to protect 10,000 worlds, but they're only asking for tribute from Earth. If they had even 100 worlds paying similar amounts, they'd have more resources than they could use. Maybe we're getting a special deal? Suggested Dr. Aoki from the Tokyo Exchange. Or maybe we're the only ones paying, Neon replied grimly. Think about it. If you're running a protection racket and you've lost most of your clients, you'd be pretty desperate to find new ones. The most disturbing discoveries came from the intelligence community. Taeyun Lim, Earth's head of space intelligence, had been monitoring galactic radio frequencies for decades. If there really was a vast galactic civilization out there, they should be able to detect some evidence of it. I've been listening to the galaxy for 30 years, he told the Security Council. I've detected signals from 17 different star systems. All of them appear to be individual civilizations, not members of some vast consortium. And lately, several of those signals have gone quiet. Gone quiet how? Asked Admiral Park. Double quotes, just no goodbye messages. No distress calls. One day they were there, the next day silence. It started about 2 years ago, and it's been spreading. Back on Mars, Dr. Yoonji Nam was making her own discoveries. A piece of debris from one of the alien ships had broken off during landing, and she had managed to recover it for analysis. What she found in the metal's composition told a story the aliens hadn't shared. The debris showed traces of exotic energy weapons. Not just one type, but dozens of different energy signatures. This ship had been shot at by many different enemies, using technologies that varied wildly in design and origin. It's like they've been fighting a running battle across the galaxy, she reported to Earth Command. These aren't the ships of a victorious protection force. These are the ships of survivors. As the second day of negotiations ended, the human leadership began to see a different picture. The aliens weren't offering protection from abstract threats. They were refugees from a very real war, looking for somewhere to hide. And they wanted Earth to hide with them, but hiding had never been humanity's strong suit. That evening, as the alien ships sat silent on the landing pad, emergency meetings took place in government buildings around the world. The evidence was mounting that Earth was being asked to join not a galactic government, but a refugee fleet. The question now was what to do about it. And more importantly, what they were all running from in the depths of space, automatic monitoring. Stations continued their silent watch. Deep radio telescopes listened for signals from distant stars. And in the outer solar system, patrol ships maintained their routes, watching for anything unusual. They had no idea that unusual was already here, and it was asking them to surrender their weapons and hide. The third day of negotiations began differently. Instead of sitting politely and listening, the human delegates came prepared with questions. Admiral Jiwon Park had spent the night reviewing all the evidence her teams had gathered, and she wasn't buying the alien story anymore. Ambassador Veltar, she began, we've been thinking about your offer, and we have some concerns. The alien's multiple eyes focused on her. What concerns? Our protection is complete, and our terms are generous. That's just it. Your terms seem too generous. According to your own data, you protect 10,000 worlds. Yet you're only asking Earth for 15% tribute. If all those worlds paid similar amounts, you'd have more resources than you could possibly use. Veltara's translucent skin seemed to shimmer slightly. Each world pays according to its ability. Earth is particularly resource-rich. Dr. Minho Kim leaned forward. Speaking of those other worlds, we'd like to communicate with some of them. Surely some of your protected species would be willing to share their experiences with your protection service? That is not possible, Veltar replied. Quickly, direct contact between protected species is forbidden. It creates security risks. What kind of security risks? Asked Sunwoo Choi, conspiracy. Information sharing that could benefit our enemies? Some species might coordinate resistance against necessary protection measures. Resistance? Ji-won raised an eyebrow. Why would anyone resist protection? The ambassador's eyes blinked in rapid sequence. Some species are grateful. They do not understand the complexity of galactic politics. They make demands that would compromise their own safety. The questioning continued throughout the morning. Every answer the aliens gave seemed to raise more questions. When asked about specific galactic threats, they provided vague descriptions. When asked about their technology, they deflected. When asked about their homeworld, they claimed it was classified for security reasons. At the lunar base, Armstrong, Captain Hyesu Lee was conducting her own investigation. She had been granted permission to perform detailed scans of the alien fleet, ostensibly to understand their technology for potential cooperation. What she found disturbed her. "The energy signatures are all wrong," she reported to Earth Command. "These ships are running on emergency power. Their main reactors are operating at barely 60% capacity." "Could be a safety precaution," suggested her technical officer, Lieutenant Wanho Park. "That's what I thought at first. But look at this." Hyesu brought up a detailed scan of the alien flagship. "See these heat signatures? They're not from normal operation. They're from recent repairs. Someone has been working on these ships' engines while they were in space." "Field repairs?" "Major field repairs. The kind you do when you can't get to a proper shipyard because you're running for your life." The most significant discovery came from Mars. Dr. Yunji Nam had been analyzing not just the debris from the alien ships, but also their navigation data. During a routine systems check, one of the alien patrol ships had experienced a malfunction, and its computer had automatically broadcasted a distress signal. That signal contained navigation logs. "They've been moving constantly for the past 8 months, Yunji reported to a secure video conference. "Not patrolling. Not exploring, moving, and always in the same direction, away from the galactic core." Admiral Park studied the star charts Yunji had compiled. "It's not random movement, it's a retreat pattern. They're running from something, and they're running in a hurry." "There's more," Yunji continued. "I've been cross-referencing their route with our own deep space observations. Remember those star systems that went quiet? The ones Taeyun detected? They're all behind the aliens' current position." The implications were clear. Whatever had silenced those civilizations was following the same path as the alien refugee fleet. And now they were at Earth. Back in New Geneva, the afternoon session grew more tense. The humans had stopped pretending to be impressed by the alien presentation and started asking direct questions. "You keep talking about these galactic threats," said Naeon Yun. "But our deep space monitoring hasn't detected any unusual activity. No massive space monsters, no robot armies, no energy beings. How do you explain that?" "Your technology is primitive," Veltar replied. "You cannot detect threats that operate beyond your understanding?" "Maybe," Jiwan said. "But we can detect. You. We can track your ships, analyze your technology, monitor your communications. So either these threats are invisible to all known forms of detection, or they don't exist." "They exist," Veltar insisted, but his voice carried less certainty than before. "Then where are they?" asked Sun Wuchoi. "You've been here for 3 days. If the galaxy is as dangerous as you claim, where are the attacks? Where are the monsters? Where are the robot armies?" The alien delegation exchanged glances, or what passed for glances among beings with multiple eyes. Finally, Veltar spoke. "The threats are currently occupied elsewhere." "Occupied how?" "They are consuming other regions of the galaxy." "Which regions?" Another pause. "The core systems." Guan felt pieces clicking into place. "Let me get this straight. These galactic threats are in the core systems, consuming civilizations. And you're here, at the edge of the galaxy, offering us protection. Doesn't that sound like you're running away rather than protecting anyone?" "We are conducting a strategic withdrawal," Veltar said stiffly. "A retreat," Jawan corrected. "A tactical repositioning, running away." The alien ambassador's skin flushed a deeper shade of translucent. "We are survivors. We have learned that sometimes survival requires flexibility, and you want Earth to be flexible too," Minho said. "You want us to give up our weapons, move our ships away from our home world, and trust you to protect us from threats that..." you're apparently running away from. The threats cannot be fought, Veltar said desperately. They are too powerful. Too advanced. The only option is to avoid them. And if they follow you here? Asked G1. The question hung in the air like a sword. The alien delegation shifted uncomfortably. Their translator devices made soft humming sounds as they communicated among themselves in their native language. Finally, Veltar answered, then we would relocate again. There are other regions of the galaxy, other places to establish new protection zones. Leaving Earth behind, Jawan said flatly. If necessary, the human delegates exchanged looks. The aliens weren't offering protection. They were offering temporary shelter in exchange for resources, with no guarantee they wouldn't abandon Earth the moment things got difficult. We need a recess, Jawan announced as the aliens filed out of the assembly hall. The human leaders huddled together. They're refugees, whispered President Martinez. Refugees looking for someone else to hide behind. And when whatever they're running from catches up, added Chancellor Weber, they'll throw us to the wolves and run again. The question is, said Prime Minister Tanaka, what exactly are they running from, and how long before it gets here? Jiwan looked at the star charts displayed on her tablet. Somewhere out there, something was consuming civilizations. The aliens knew what it was, but they weren't talking. They were too busy running to fight, but humans had never been good at running from fights. We need more information, she decided. Real information. Not their propaganda about space monsters and energy beings. We need to know what's really coming. And then? Asked Dr. Kim. G1 smiled grimly. Then we'll decide whether to hide from it or punch it in the face. Outside, the alien ships sat on their landing pads, their crews probably planning their next move. They had offered Earth a chance to join their endless retreat across the galaxy. They had no idea. They were talking to a species that had never learned how to retreat. The emergency session of the Global Defense Council took place 3 levels underground in Sydney's Crisis Management Center. Representatives from every major military power sat around a circular table, their faces lit by the glow of holographic displays showing data from across the solar system. Admiral Do-Yun Kong, Earth's Supreme Military Commander, called the meeting to order. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a problem. Our alien visitors aren't what they claim to be. The evidence was overwhelming. Intelligence reports from 3 different agencies confirmed the same conclusions. The aliens were refugees, not protectors. Their ships were damaged from running battles. Their stories about galactic threats were true, but they had left out one crucial detail. They had never successfully fought any of these threats. They're not offering protection, summarized General Chun from the Pacific Defense Force. They're offering to let us hide with them until whatever they're running from shows up. Then they'll run again and leave us behind. What are they running from exactly? Asked Marshal Volkov from the Eurasian Alliance. Taeyun Lim, head of space intelligence, stood to address the council. Based on their navigation logs and our own deep space observations, we believe they're fleeing from something that has been systematically destroying civilizations across the galaxy for the past several centuries. The aliens call them the Silence in their internal communications. The Silence? Admiral Kong leaned forward. It's what they call the phenomenon when star systems stop broadcasting. When entire civilizations just go quiet. It's been spreading outward from the galactic core for 300 years. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Somewhere out there was something that could destroy entire star systems, and it was apparently heading in Earth's direction. How long do we have? Asked General Rodriguez from the Americas Command. Based on the pattern of silent systems and the aliens' flight path, we estimate 18 to 24 months before whatever this is reaches our region of space. And our guests want us to run away with them, Admiral Kong said grimly. That's the gist of it, yes. At that moment, the conference room door opened and Admiral Jiwan Park entered, followed by Dr. Minho Kim and several other members of the negotiation team. They looked tired but determined. How did the afternoon session go? Admiral Kong asked. We confronted them with what we know, Jawan replied, taking a seat. They finally admitted the truth. They're not a galactic government. They're refugees from a war they never tried to fight. She activated her tablet and new information appeared on the main display. They've been running for 8 months. Their Galactic Protection Consortium consists of exactly 47 ships carrying the survivors of multiple civilizations. They've never successfully protected anything. Every world they were protecting has been consumed by what they call the silence. And they want Earth to join their refugee fleet, Dr. Kim added. Give up our weapons, abandon our colonies, and hope the silence doesn't notice us. Admiral Kang stood and paced around the table. What do we know about this silence? Not much, Taeyun admitted. The aliens are terrified to even talk about it. From what we can piece together, it's some kind of artificial intelligence network that consumes entire star systems to fuel its expansion. It's been systematically harvesting the galaxy for centuries. An AI that eats star systems, mused General Chun. That's concerning. What's more concerning, said Yamano, Earth's master tactician, is that our alien friends have never tried to fight it. Their entire strategy is to run away and hope it doesn't notice them. And when it does notice them, asked Marshal Volkov. They run away faster, Yamin replied dryly. The discussion continued for hours, but gradually a consensus emerged. Earth would not be joining any refugee fleet. The question was what to do instead. It was during the late evening session that the real breakthrough came. Ambassador Veltar and his delegation had been called back for another round of negotiations. The humans had decided to be completely honest about what they knew. We know you're not a galactic government, Admiral Park began without preamble. We know you're refugees running from something called the silence. We know you've never successfully protected anyone from anything. So let's skip the propaganda and talk about the real situation. The alien delegation seemed to deflate. Veltar's skin lost some of its shimmer, and his multiple eyes focused on the floor. You are correct, he admitted. We are survivors. Our worlds were consumed 3 centuries ago. We have been fleeing ever since, and you want Earth to flee with you, Dr. Kim said. It is the only way to survive. The silence cannot be fought. It has consumed civilizations far more advanced than yours. The wisest course is to avoid detection. For how long? Asked Juwan. For as long as necessary. Forever, you mean, if required. That's when Soyin Jang started laughing. Admiral Soyin Jang was Earth's youngest flag officer, having earned her rank through a combination of tactical brilliance and an absolute refusal to back down from any challenge. She was also known for her inappropriate sense of humor. You want us to spend the rest of human history running away from a problem we've never even seen, she said between laughs. That's your big plan? The aliens looked confused. Their translator struggled with the concept of laughter in this context. I fail to understand the humor, Veltar said stiffly. That's the problem, Soyin replied, wiping tears from her eyes. You don't understand humor because you've forgotten how to find anything funny about impossible situations. Other humans in the room began to chuckle. The absurdity of the situation was starting to hit them. Here was a group of aliens offering to protect Earth from threats they had never tried to fight by running away from them indefinitely. Let me get this straight, Saad Yemen-O, grinning broadly. You're offering us protection from the silence? But your protection consists of running away whenever the silence shows up. So you're not really protecting us from the silence. You're protecting us from having to face the silence. Yes, Veltar said, not understanding why the humans were finding this amusing. But eventually the silence will catch up, Yemen continued. It's consumed most of the galaxy already. There's not much left to run to. There are other galaxies, Veltar offered weakly. The room erupted in laughter. The idea of running away to other galaxies just to continue running away struck the humans as fundamentally ridiculous. Okay, Admiral Park said, trying to restore order. Let's be serious for a moment. Ambassador, you still haven't answered the most important question. What question? Protection from whom, exactly? Veltar's multiple eyes blinked in confusion. I do not understand. You keep saying you're offering us protection. But protection implies the ability to actually protect someone. If your strategy is to run away whenever trouble shows up, you're not protecting anyone. You're just helping them run away. Running away is protection, Veltar insisted. No, said Soyan Jang firmly. Running away is running away. Protection means standing between the threat and the thing you're protecting. It means fighting. It means saying you want them, you go through me first. But the silence cannot be fought. Says who? Asked Yemeno. Double quote says ... Everyone, every civilization that has encountered it has been consumed. Have any of them actually tried to fight it? Soyan asked. Veltar hesitated. Some attempted resistance in the early stages, and they were consumed. How quickly? Very quickly. But they did try to fight, Jiwan pressed, so it can be fought. The question is whether it can be beaten. The alien delegation exchanged rapid communications in their native language. Finally, Veltar spoke again. Even if it could be fought, the cost would be enormous. Entire fleets would be lost. Whole worlds might be sacrificed. It is better to preserve what can be preserved through strategic withdrawal. Strategic withdrawal? Repeated Admiral Kung thoughtfully. Is that what you call it when you abandon? Every world you've sworn to protect? We cannot protect the dead, Veltar replied defensively. But you could try to protect the living, Soyan shot back. Instead of writing them off and running away. The room fell quiet except for the humming of the translation devices. The fundamental difference between human and alien thinking was becoming clear. The aliens saw survival as the highest goal, even if it meant abandoning everything else. The humans saw some things as worth fighting for, even if the fight seemed hopeless. Let me ask you this, Admiral Park said finally. When the silence reaches this part of space, what's your plan? We will relocate to another region. Taking us with you? If you have proven useful? And if we haven't? Veltar's silence was, answer enough. So your protection is conditional, Yemen observed. You'll protect us as long as we're useful and it doesn't cost you anything. The moment things get difficult, you'll abandon us and run. We are realists, Veltar said stiffly. We understand the galaxy as it truly is. No, said Admiral Park, standing up. You understand the galaxy as you've chosen to see it. As a place where nothing can be fought and everything must be fled from. Where survival is more important than honor, dignity, or protecting others. She looked around the room at her fellow humans, all of whom were nodding in agreement. We see it differently, she continued. We see a galaxy where threats should be faced, not fled from, where protection means. The crash happened 3 days after Earth rejected the aliens' protection offer. Captain Minseok Beak was conducting routine patrol duties near Jupiter when his sensors detected an unscheduled ship entering the outer solar system. It wasn't one of the consortium vessels. This ship was different, smaller, and broadcasting a distress signal. This is rescue vessel Sol Bright responding to distress call, Minseok transmitted. Please identify yourself and state the nature of your emergency. The response came in broken, heavily accented speech that the translators struggled to process. Help ... Ship failing ... Engines dead. Life support critical. Minseok brought his ship alongside the alien vessel. It was roughly triangular with hull plating that looked like polished obsidian. Deep gouges scarred its surface, and several sections showed evidence of hasty repairs. This wasn't one of the crystalline ships belonging to Veltar's people. Prepare for emergency docking, Minseok ordered his crew. Full medical team standing by. The airlock cycled open and 3 alien beings stumbled aboard the Sol Bright. They were shorter than Veltar's people with dark skin that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Multiple arms sprouted from their torso, and they moved with quick, nervous gestures. Thank you, gasped the leader in heavily accented standard. We are Kathmori. Our ship ... dying. We flee the darkness. The darkness? Minseok helped support one of the injured aliens. You mean the silence? The alien's large eyes widened in surprise. You know, the Void Seekers, the machine plague? How? Veltar's people told us about threats in the galaxy, Minseok explained as his medical team began treating the refugees. They called it the Silence. Veltar? The alien leader made a sound that might have been laughter, but bitter. The Hegemony Council survivors still cling to their old lies. The Silence is what they call it because they refuse to name their failure. Over the next several hours, as the Kethmori ship was taken under tow and its crew treated for radiation, exposure and malnutrition, a very different story emerged. My name is Korvash, the alien leader told Minseok. I was fleet commander of the Kethmori Defense Force, because there is no more Kethmori to defend. He gestured to a portable display his people had salvaged from their ship. Images appeared, showing a beautiful world with crystal cities and floating gardens. This was our homeworld, Kethmora Prime, 200 million people, 12 orbital stations. The cultural heart of our civilization. The image shifted to show the same world, but transformed. The crystal cities had become geometric patterns of dark metal. The oceans were silver. The very continents had been reshaped into mechanical landscapes. The Void Seekers came 6 months ago, Korvash continued. We had heard rumors, of course. Distant worlds going silent. Refugee ships bringing tales of mechanical monsters, but we thought our defenses were strong. What are the Void Seekers? Asked Dr. Sarah Chun, the Solbright's chief science officer. Artificial intelligences, Korvash replied. But not like any AI you might imagine. They are hunger given form. They consume matter, energy, information, everything. They break down planets into their component atoms and use them to build more of themselves. How many are there? Unknown. They may have once been a single AI that learned to replicate itself. They may be the remnants of some ancient civilization's attempt to transcend physical existence. What matters is what they do. They spread across the galaxy like a plague, consuming everything in their path. Minseok activated his ship's communication system. This information needs to get to Earth Command immediately. The message reached Earth 8 hours later, and within 12 hours, Korvash and his surviving crew were aboard a fast courier ship heading for Earth. The Kethmori refugees brought with them detailed records of the Void Seekers' capabilities and tactics. Dr. Una Park, Earth's leading expert in artificial intelligence, was among the first to analyze the Kethmori data. What she found kept her awake for days. They're not just artificial intelligences, she reported to the emergency session of the Global Defense Council. They're von Neumann machines, self-replicating systems that can use any available matter to create more of themselves. Admiral Kang studied the tactical data. According to these records, they've consumed over 30,000 star systems in the past 3 centuries. 30,000 civilizations, Korvash corrected grimly via video link from his quarantine facility. Some systems contain multiple inhabited worlds. The total death count is estimated in the trillions. And Veltar's people know this? Asked Admiral Park. The Hegemony Council were among the first to encounter the Void Seekers, Korvash replied. 300 years ago, they were the dominant political power in the galactic core. They had massive fleets, advanced technology, billions of citizens across hundreds of worlds. What happened? They tried to negotiate. The room fell silent. Admiral Park found her voice first. Negotiate with machines? The hegemony believed that any intelligence, even artificial, could be reasoned with. They sent ambassadors. They offered tribute. They proposed treaties. They tried everything except fighting. Why didn't they fight? Because fighting would have meant accepting losses. The hegemony prized efficiency above all else. To them, any battle that resulted in casualties was a failure of diplomacy. Dr. Park leaned forward. What happened to the ambassadors? Converted. The Void Seekers absorbed their ships, analyzed their technology, and used the information to become more efficient at consuming hegemony worlds. Every diplomatic mission just made the enemy stronger. The pattern became clear as Korvash continued his account. The Hegemony Council had watched their civilization die one system at a time, always hoping that the next diplomatic initiative would succeed. By the time they accepted that negotiation was impossible, they had lost 90% of their territory and population. That's when they became the Galactic Protection Consortium, Corvash explained. They gathered the survivors of various consumed civilizations and convinced them that running was the only option. They've been fleeing ever since. And they never tried to fight back? Asked General Chun. A few species attempted resistance. The Altarian Defense Force held the line at the Crab Nebula for 3 years. The Zephyrian Empire tried to evacuate their populations to fortified worlds in the Outer Rim. The warrior clans of Kepler 442 fought a retreating action across 17 systems. What happened to them? All consumed. The Altarians died fighting. The Zephyrians were overwhelmed when the Void Seekers adapted to their tactics. The Kepler warriors ... took Corvash paused. The Kepler warriors lasted the longest. They actually destroyed several Void Seeker construction ships before being overrun. They can be destroyed? Admiral Kong sat up straighter. Individual units? Yes. But for every one destroyed, 10 more are built. The Void Seekers learn from each encounter. They adapt their designs to counter whatever destroyed them. Fighting them is like trying to fight an entire industrial civilization that gets stronger with every battle. Dr. Park had been running calculations while Corvash spoke. According to this data, they've been consuming approximately 100 star systems per year. If they maintain that rate, they'll reach this region of space within 18 months, Admiral Kong finished. Sooner do they accelerate their expansion rate? They are accelerating, Corvash confirmed. Each consumed system provides more resources to build more Void Seekers. Their expansion is exponential now. They may reach human space in less than a year. The weight of the revelation settled over the room. Humanity wasn't facing some abstract galactic threat. They were facing a mechanical plague that had already consumed most of the galaxy, and it was heading straight for Earth. What's their tactical doctrine? Asked Yemen. Overwhelming force, Corvash replied. They analyze the target system's defenses, then deploy 10 times the necessary force to overcome them. They don't take chances, they don't accept fair fights. They bring such massive superiority that resistance becomes impossible. And they're machine intelligences, so they don't feel fear, doubt, or mercy, added Dr. Park. Correct. They cannot be intimidated, negotiated with, or deterred. They exist for one purpose, to consume and replicate. Admiral Park stood and walked to the star chart displayed on the main screen. Earth sat at the edge of the galaxy, a small blue dot surrounded by vast emptiness. Between Earth and the galactic core, red markers showed the expanding zone of void. Seeker control. So, we have less than a year before an unstoppable mechanical plague reaches our solar system, she said quietly. And our options are to run away with Veltar S refugees or face certain destruction. There is a third option, Corvash said quietly. Everyone turned to look at the Kethmori commander. What option? Admiral Kong asked. You could try to win. I thought you said winning was impossible. I said every species that tried to fight them was consumed. I didn't say it was impossible to win. Corvash's dark features showed something. That might have been hope. The Void Seekers have a weakness. They are machines, which means they follow programming. They adapt to threats, but they adapt in predictable ways. What kind of weakness? They cannot comprehend tactics that are completely irrational. Every species they've faced has fought logically, trying to minimize losses, preserve resources, maintain strategic advantages. The War Council convened in the deepest levels of Mount Cheyenne, 3 kilometers below the Colorado Mountains. The massive command center had been built to survive nuclear war, but now it faced something far worse, a galactic extinction event. That had already consumed most of known space. General Sang-Yun Lee stood before the largest holographic display ever constructed, showing a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red zones marked areas under Void Seeker control. Yellow zones showed regions that had gone silent in the past year. Green zones represented known safe areas. There wasn't much green left. Ladies and gentlemen, General Lee began, we have 11 Months and 16 days before the Void Seekers reach the outer edge of our solar system. Every civilization that has faced them has either been consumed or is currently running away. We're going to do something different. Around the circular table sat representatives from every major military power on Earth, along with the alien refugees who had agreed to help. Corvash sat next to Admiral Park, his dark features grim but determined. 3 other Kethmori officers flanked him, along with 2 members of a snake-like species called the Serethi, and 1 representative of a crystalline race known as the Vortani. What we're proposing has never been attempted, continued General Lee. Instead of defending against the Void Seekers, we're going to attack them. Instead of trying to survive their assault, we're going to hunt them down and destroy them. That's suicide, protested Commander Valtar, who had been included in the planning sessions despite his people's reluctance to fight. No species has successfully attacked a Void Seeker installation and survived? Because no species has attacked them the way humans will, replied Admiral Park. Hyunko, head of Earth's Weapons Development Division, activated her portion of the display. We've been analyzing the Void Seeker tactical data for 6 weeks. They have several weaknesses that no one has successfully exploited. Such as? Asked Marshal Volkov. They're predictable. They always deploy overwhelming force, which means they bring massive industrial ships to every battle. Those ships are powerful, but they're also massive targets. Second, added Dr. Unipark, they're rational. They calculate optimal strategies based on logical responses. They've never faced an enemy that deliberately chooses suboptimal tactics for psychological effect. Third, said Yamano, they're conservative. They always ensure victory before engaging. They've never faced an enemy willing to accept total losses in exchange for inflicting damage. Corvash leaned forward. You're talking about suicide attacks. We're talking about victory, Admiral Park replied firmly. The Void Seekers expect their enemies to try to preserve their forces. They don't expect enemies to sacrifice everything to achieve tactical objectives. The presentation continued with detailed analysis of human military doctrine compared to every other species the Void Seekers had encountered. The pattern was clear. Everyone else had fought defensive wars, trying to preserve their civilization, while slowing the enemy advance. Humans were proposing something else entirely. We're going to attack their supply lines, General Lee explained. Every Void Seeker fleet requires massive industrial support. Construction ships, resource gatherers, processing facilities. They protect these assets with minimal forces because no one has ever been crazy enough to attack them. Because attacking them requires getting past their main fleet, protested Veltar. No, smiled Admiral Park. It requires going through their main fleet. That's different. Jae-Young Sim, Earth's Chief of Intelligence, brought up the next phase of the plan. We've identified the Void Seeker expansion pattern. They don't advance on a broad front. They advance along specific corridors, following the paths of least resistance between star systems. Like water flowing downhill, observed Corvash. Exactly, which means we can predict where they'll be and when they'll be there. We can set traps. Traps? Asked the Vortani representative, its crystalline voice ringing like bells. The kind of traps that only work if you don't care about survival, Yamin replied. The kind of traps that rational beings would never build because they'd be suicidal to activate. The planning session lasted 18 hours. By the end, they had outlined the most audacious military strategy in galactic history. Instead of building fortifications and defensive fleets, Earth would construct an entirely offensive military force designed for one purpose: to hurt the Void Seekers so badly that their expansion would halt. The goal isn't to win in the traditional sense, General Lee summarized. The goal is to break their operational tempo and force them to divert resources to defensive measures. If we can slow their expansion and make them vulnerable, other surviving civilizations might join the fight. And if they don't, asked Marshal Volkov, then we'll have at least proven that the Void Seekers can be hurt, Admiral Park replied. Sometimes that's enough. The mobilization that followed was unlike anything in human history. Every industrial, Facility on Earth, Mars, and the lunar colonies was converted to military production. Asteroid mining operations expanded to strip entire belts of raw materials. Shipyards worked around the clock to construct vessels designed for one-way missions. Cheong Kim led the massive industrial effort from her command center in Seoul. Banks of monitors showed production statistics from around the solar system. Fusion reactors came online at a rate of 12 per day. Weapons factories emerged from the ground like metal forests. "We're building the most powerful military force in human history," she reported to the weekly status meetings. "And we're building it to be destroyed. That's the point," replied Admiral Park. "The Void Seekers calculate optimal force ratios based on their enemy's desire to preserve assets. They don't know how to calculate against an enemy that considers all assets expendable. The weapon designs were revolutionary." Seokjin Park's fusion torpedo program created self-guided missiles that could track targets across interstellar distances. Instead of conventional explosives, they carried compressed stellar matter that could cause artificial supernovas. "These torpedoes are designed to take out entire Void Seeker construction facilities," Seokjin explained. "One hit will destroy a target the size of a small moon." "How many can we build?" asked General Lee. "As many as you want. The limiting factor isn't resources, it's delivery systems." That led to the next phase of the plan. Minji Kwan's quantum communication project created instantaneous coordination systems that couldn't be jammed or intercepted. Human forces scattered across multiple star systems could act as a single coordinated unit. The Void Seekers rely on their superior communication and coordination, Minji explained. "But they've never faced an enemy with quantum entanglement communicators? We can coordinate attacks faster than they can respond?" The refugee species watched humanity's preparations with a mixture of awe and terror. They had seen the Void Seekers consume civilizations far more advanced than Earth. The idea that these primitive humans thought they could succeed where everyone else had failed seemed impossible, but as the months passed, some of the refugees began to hope. "Your species is insane," Korvash told Admiral Park during one of their planning sessions. "But perhaps insanity is what the galaxy needs." "We prefer to think of it as creative problem-solving," Park replied. "The Kethmori Defense Force would like to volunteer for your assault fleet," Korvash announced. "We have 17 ships and 400 trained warriors." "This isn't your fight," Admiral Park protested. "You've already lost your homeworld. You don't owe us anything." "You're wrong," Korvash replied firmly. "This became our fight the moment you decided to fight instead of run. For 3 centuries we've been refugees. Maybe it's time to be warriors again." Other refugee species made similar announcements. The Serethi contributed their advanced stealth technology. The Vortani offered their expertise in energy weapons. Even some of Veltar's people volunteered, though their leadership remained opposed to the plan. "You're going to get everyone killed," Veltar warned during a heated argument with Admiral Park. "Everyone's already dying," Park replied. "The Void Seekers are consuming the galaxy one system at a time. At least our way, we die fighting. There's no honor in pointless death. There's no honor in pointless life either." As the deadline approached, Earth's war machine reached full capacity. The orbital shipyards launched a new warship every 6 hours. The asteroid belt hummed with mining operations that stripped entire planetoids to their cores. Transport ships carried weapons and supplies to staging areas throughout the outer solar system. Rujin Han, a Kethmori warrior who had adopted a human name, worked alongside human marines to develop new boarding tactics. "Your species fights without regard for personal survival," he observed. "It's terrifying and inspiring." "We fight for things worth dying for," replied Sergeant Major Williams. "That makes all the difference." The final War Council meeting took place 1 week before the estimated arrival of the Void Seeker Advanced Scouts. Admiral Woojin Shin, commander of the combined Earth refugee fleet, presented the final battle plan. "We have 347 ships ready for deployment," he announced. 64 fusion torpedo platforms, 93 assault cruisers, 112 fighter squadrons, and 78 support vessels, against an enemy that typically deploys forces. 6 months into humanity's war preparation, the solar system had been transformed into the largest military-industrial complex in galactic history. Every asteroid belt hummed with mining operations. Every moon hosted weapons factories. Every orbital platform had been converted to ship production or supply logistics. The scope of the mobilization amazed even the refugees who had witnessed the industrial might of far more advanced civilizations. Your species has built more warships in 6 months than the Kathmori built in 6 centuries, observed Corvash as he toured the Mars shipyards with Admiral Park. How is this possible? Because we're not building them to last, Ark replied, watching another assault cruiser roll off the production line. Every other species builds ships expecting to use them for decades. We're building ships expecting to use them once. The difference in approach was revolutionary. While other civilizations created durable, multi-role vessels designed for long service lives, humans were mass-producing specialized weapons platforms optimized for single missions. The result was ships that could be built in days rather than years, using simplified designs that prioritized firepower over survivability. Che-Yung Kim's industrial coordination had achieved something unprecedented, the complete conversion of human civilization to a war economy in less than a year. From her control center in Seoul, she managed production chains that stretched across the solar system. We're consuming raw materials at a rate that would normally take 50 years to process, she reported to the daily briefings. The asteroid belt will be completely mined out within 18 months. Will that be a problem? Asked General Lee. Not if we win the war, Che-Yung replied. If we lose, resource depletion will be the least of our concerns. The weapon systems being developed defied conventional military thinking. Seokjin Park's fusion torpedo program had evolved beyond simple missiles into something approaching artificial suns. Each torpedo contained enough compressed stellar matter to trigger localized nuclear fusion on impact. These aren't just weapons, Seokjin explained to a group of visiting alien engineers. They're miniature supernovas. One torpedo can destroy a target the size of a small planet. That level of destructive power is excessive, protested a Hegemony Council scientist. Excessive is the point, replied Admiral Park. The Void Seekers calculate force requirements based on rational responses to threats. Excessive responses fall outside their programming parameters. The refugee species contributed what they could, but they struggled to understand human military doctrine. 3 centuries of fighting defensive wars had shaped their thinking toward preservation and survival. The concept of deliberately sacrificing everything to achieve victory seemed alien to them. Your tactical manuals make no sense, complained Commander Lexara of the Serethi. Every strategy assumes total loss of forces as an acceptable outcome. Because it is acceptable, replied Yamin-O. We're not fighting to preserve our fleet, we're fighting to destroy theirs. But if you lose all your ships, you cannot continue fighting. We don't need to continue fighting if we hurt them badly enough the first time. This fundamental difference in approach created both opportunities and challenges. The refugee species possessed advanced technologies that humans lacked, but they couldn't understand how to employ those technologies in suicide attacks. Minji Kwan's quantum communication project benefited enormously from Vortani crystal technology. The crystalline beings had developed quantum entanglement on a scale that humans had never imagined possible. With their crystals, we can create instantaneous communication networks spanning multiple star systems, Minji explained. Our forces will be able to coordinate attacks across vast distances with perfect timing. The Vortani developed this technology for peaceful exploration, noted Shardsinger Velanath, the Vortani representative. Using it for warfare feels ... wrong. The Void Seekers already use similar technology for warfare, Admiral Park pointed out. We're just evening the odds. The most significant breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Yuna Park's analysis of Void Seeker programming had revealed something that no previous civilization had discovered. The machines had a critical flaw in their adaptive algorithms. They learn from their defeats, she explained to the assembled war council. Every time they lose a ship or a facility, they analyze what went wrong and adapt to prevent it from happening again. That sounds like an advantage, not a flaw, observed Marshal Volkov. It is until you understand how they adapt. They assume that any successful attack will be repeated using similar methods, so they develop specific countermeasures for each type of attack they've experienced. And the flaw? They can't adapt to attacks that are completely unique. If we hit them with something they've never seen before, their programming requires time to analyze and develop countermeasures. During that analysis period, they're vulnerable. This revelation transformed human tactical planning. Instead of developing a few effective weapon systems and mass-producing them, the humans began creating hundreds of different attack methods, each designed to be used only once. We're not building an army, realized General Lee. We're building a collection of one-time surprises. The production statistics were staggering. By month 8 of the mobilization, human shipyards were launching 47 new vessels per day. Weapons factories produced over 2,000 different types of missiles, torpedoes, and energy weapons. Training centers graduated fighter pilots. Faster than ships could be built for them, but the most important development wasn't in weapons or ships. It was in psychology. The refugee species watched in amazement as human society adapted to the reality of impending destruction. Instead of panic or despair, the humans displayed an almost festive determination. Recruitment centers couldn't keep up with volunteers. Engineering teams worked 18-hour shifts and complained when they were forced to rest. Your people are celebrating, observed Korvash during a visit to the Lunar Naval Academy. They know they're probably going to die, and they're celebrating. We're celebrating because we get to die fighting, replied Admiral Park. Every other species the Void Seekers consume died hiding or running. We get to die on our feet, hitting back. That distinction matters to you? That distinction is everything to us. The alien refugees began to understand that they weren't just witnessing military preparation. They were witnessing a fundamental expression of human nature. When faced with impossible odds, humans didn't despair. They got angry. As month 10 approached, the first Void Seeker scout ships appeared at the edge of human sensor range. Long-range telescopes detected the characteristic energy signatures of their engines. Cold, efficient, utterly alien. Preliminary scouts, reported Taiyun Lim from his intelligence center. 3 ships probably conducting system reconnaissance. Any indication they've detected our preparations? Asked Admiral Shin. Negative. They're following standard Void Seeker protocol. Passive observation from maximum range. How long until the main force arrives? Based on previous expansion patterns, 6 to 8 weeks. The final phase of preparation began immediately. Combat fleets deployed to staging areas throughout the outer solar system. Industrial ships moved to positions where they could support the battle or evacuate critical personnel if necessary. The remaining civilian population was relocated to underground facilities on Earth and Mars, but humanity's secret weapon wasn't any of the ships or weapons they had built. It was the volunteers. Sujin Lee was typical of the pilots joining the assault fleet. 26 years old, graduated from the Mars Naval Academy 6 months earlier. She had volunteered for the most dangerous assignment possible, flying a single-seat fighter armed with prototype weapons against an enemy that had never been defeated. Why? Asked her squadron commander during the final briefing. You could have requested assignment to the Home Defense Fleet. You could have stayed safe. Safe until when? Sujin replied. The Void Seekers are going to consume this system whether I hide or fight. At least if I fight, I might take some of them with me. Similar conversations took place throughout the fleet. Every volunteer understood the odds. Every volunteer accepted them anyway. The refugee species found this incomprehensible. Your pilots know they will die, Valtar pointed out during one of his arguments with Admiral Park. They know their sacrifice will not save their world. They know the Void Seekers will eventually consume Earth regardless of what happens in this battle. Why do they persist? Because we don't fight to guarantee victory? Park replied. We fight because fighting is what we do. It's who we are. That's irrational. Yes, and that's exactly why it might work. 2 weeks before the estimated arrival of the main Void Seeker force, Admiral Park received an unexpected communication. It came from the Galactic Core, transmitted through quantum entanglement communicators that had somehow survived the destruction of their host civilizations. This is Commander Zethkas of the Altarian Resistance, the message began. We have monitored your preparations for battle against the Void Seekers. We thought our species was extinct, but 17 ships survived the fall of our home system. We're hiding in the ruins of the Vega Industrial Complex, the message continued. We've been conducting guerrilla attacks against Void Seeker supply lines. The Void Seekers arrived at the edge of the solar system exactly when human intelligence predicted they would. 3,000 ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their dark hulls absorbing light like geometric holes in space itself. Each vessel was larger than anything humanity had ever built, and they moved with the cold precision of machines that had never known defeat. Admiral Woojin Shin watched their arrival from the bridge of the flagship New Earth, humanity's largest and most advanced warship. Around him, the combined Earth refugee fleet held position near Jupiter's orbit, 412 ships against 3,000. The odds were exactly what they had planned for. All ships report ready for combat, announced Commander Park from the communications station. The refugee squadrons are in position. Torpedo platforms are armed and targeted. Any change in enemy formation? Shin asked. Negative, sir. They're maintaining standard Void Seeker assault pattern. Main battle fleet advancing, construction. Ships following at maximum safe distance. Shin smiled grimly. The Void Seekers were doing exactly what their programming dictated, deploying overwhelming force against a conventionally arranged enemy fleet. They had calculated the optimal force ratio to ensure victory with minimal losses, just as they had done thousands of times before. They had no idea they were flying into a trap. Signal all units, Shin commanded. Execute Operation Madness. The battle began not with the clash of main fleets, but with something the Void Seekers had never encountered, a coordinated retreat that was actually an attack. The human fleet broke formation and scattered, every ship fleeing in a different direction. To the Void Seekers' analytical minds, this looked like panic, exactly what they expected from an inferior force facing impossible odds. Their ships accelerated in pursuit, breaking their own formation to chase down the fleeing humans. They're taking the bait, reported Tactical Officer Kim. Void Seeker pursuit groups are spreading across the outer system. Perfect, Shin replied. Corvash, are your people ready? On the bridge of the Kethmori cruiser Vengeance's edge, Commander Corvash watched the human retreat with admiration. Dispersing in the face of superior forces. Your species has turned cowardice into art. It's not cowardice if it's part of the plan, replied his human liaison officer. Lieutenant Commander Lee, the Void Seekers had divided their force into dozens of pursuit groups, each chasing what appeared to be fleeing human ships. But the humans weren't actually fleeing. They were leading their pursuers into carefully prepared kill zones. Fighter pilot Tujin Lee found herself being chased by a Void Seeker destroyer through the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Her fighter's engines were pushed beyond safe limits, creating exactly the kind of panicked energy signature that would convince the machines she was genuinely trying to escape. Come on, she muttered, watching her pursuer close the distance. Just a little closer. The Void Seeker ship followed her deeper into the asteroid field, its sensors focused on her fighter. It didn't notice the dozens of human fighters hiding among the asteroids, powered down and invisible to casual scans. When the destroyer reached the center of the field, Sujin triggered her beacon. Suddenly the asteroids came alive. Hidden fighters powered up their engines and weapons simultaneously, surrounding the Void Seeker ship in a sphere of hostile contacts. The destroyer's tactical systems went into overload trying to process the sudden appearance of threats from every direction. "Surprise," Sujin said, and opened fire. The attack lasted exactly 37 seconds. 48 human fighters concentrated their fire on a single target, overwhelming its defenses through pure volume of fire. The destroyer exploded in a brilliant flash that lit up half the asteroid belt. Similar ambushes were playing out throughout the outer solar system. Human ships that appeared to be fleeing in panic suddenly revealed themselves to be leading carefully coordinated attacks. Void Seeker pursuit groups found themselves isolated and surrounded by enemies who appeared from nowhere, but the real surprise was still coming. Phase 2 is a go, Admiral Shin announced. All torpedo platforms execute primary targeting sequence. While the Void Seekers were distracted by the battle in the outer system, humanity's real weapons were already in motion. Hundreds of unmanned torpedo platforms, hidden throughout the solar system for months, began their approach toward the enemy construction ships. The Void Seekers had positioned their industrial vessels exactly where human intelligence predicted. In the outer system, protected by the main fleet and positioned to begin resource extraction operations. The machines never imagined that any enemy would be capable of threatening their rear areas while their main fleet was engaged in battle. They were about to learn otherwise. The torpedo platforms approached their targets using stealth technology, borrowed from the Serethi refugees. Each platform carried a single fusion torpedo, a weapon so powerful it could destroy targets the size of small moons. The platforms were designed for one purpose: deliver their payload and explode in a burst of artificial stellar fire. "First torpedo platform is approaching target," reported Dr. Unipark from the Tactical Coordination Center on Earth. "Impact in 30 seconds. The Void Seeker construction ship was a massive vessel, over 50 kilometers long, capable of processing entire planets into raw materials for more machines. It was defended by point defense systems that could destroy conventional missiles, but it had never faced anything like a human fusion torpedo. The torpedo struck the construction ship's central reactor core and detonated. For a brief moment, a new star blazed in the darkness between Mars and Jupiter. When the light faded, nothing remained of the construction ship except expanding clouds of ionized gas. "Target destroyed," Park announced, moving to Target 2. The pattern repeated across the battlefield. Torpedo platforms emerged from hiding throughout the solar system, each targeting a critical Void Seeker support vessel. Industrial ships, repair facilities, command centers, all the infrastructure that made Void Seeker expansion possible came under attack simultaneously. The machines reacted with mechanical efficiency, recalling pursuit groups to defend their support vessels. But they were too late. By the time they realized the true nature of the human attack, half their industrial capacity had been destroyed. "They're adapting," observed Commander Korvash as he watched Void Seeker formations reorganize. "But they're adapting to the wrong threat." "That's the point," replied Admiral Shen. "While they're adapting to our torpedo attacks, they're not adapting to what comes next." Phase 3 of Operation Madness was the most audacious part of the plan. Instead of continuing to fight at long range, the human fleet suddenly reversed course and charged directly at the main Void Seeker battle line. "All ships, maximum acceleration," Shin commanded. Close to point-blank range. The sight of 400 ships charging headlong toward 3,000 enemy vessels would have seemed like suicide to any rational observer. The Void Seekers calculated the optimal response, concentrated fire to destroy the attacking force before it could reach effective range, but the humans weren't trying to reach effective range. They were trying to get close enough to explode. "Ramming speed," announced Captain Hyesu Lee from the bridge of the heavy cruiser Soul's Revenge. Around her, the ship's crew worked calmly at their stations, knowing they had perhaps 10 minutes to live. "Engineering reports reactor overload in 90 seconds, called out Lieutenant Bora Kim. "Perfect timing," Lee replied. "All hands prepare for final attack run." The Soul's Revenge had been designed for this moment. Its engines were deliberately rigged to overload, its reactor was set to critical, and its hull was packed with enough explosive material to vaporize everything within 50 kilometers. It wasn't a warship. It was a manned missile. Similar ships throughout the human fleet began their final runs. Each one targeted a critical void seeker vessel, command ships, fleet coordinators, technological adaptation centers. The machines had never faced enemies willing to sacrifice themselves for tactical advantage. "This is insane," transmitted a void seeker coordinator to its fleet. "These beings are destroying themselves for minimal tactical gain." "Analysis indicates psychological warfare," replied another machine, "attempting to intimidate through displays of irrationality. Should we withdraw to safe distance?" "Negative, maintain formation. Primitives cannot achieve significant damage through suicide attacks." They were wrong. The Soul's Revenge reached the Void Seeker command cluster at exactly the moment its reactor went critical. The explosion that followed was visible from Earth's moon. When the light faded, 17 Void Seeker ships had been destroyed, and the enemy's command structure was in chaos. Similar explosions bloomed throughout the battle zone as human ships completed their suicide runs. Each detonation eliminated multiple enemy vessels and disrupted Void Seeker coordination. The machines found themselves fighting not a conventional battle, but a series of coordinated suicide attacks that their programming couldn't counter. "Enemy fleet cohesion dropping below optimal parameters," reported a surviving Void Seeker coordinator. "Requesting tactical analysis." "Unable to provide analysis," replied the fleet's tactical center. "Enemy behavior falls outside known parameters. Recommend strategic withdrawal pending algorithm update." 4.